Do you truly believe hard work alone makes someone rich? If that were the case, why is the bricklayer who wakes up at 5 in the morning still struggling? Why do teachers, nurses, or ride-share drivers who work double the average still find themselves drowning in debt? I used to believe that too, until I discovered that true wealth isn't about physical exertion, but something invisible. A single habit. A habit so straightforward, it seems absurd. Yet it was this very habit that pulled me out of debts larger than my annual income and led me to earn my first $1 million. And today, I want to reveal it to you. I learned, the hard way, that money isn't just paper or numbers in a bank account. Money is energy. And like all energy, it vibrates at a certain frequency. If you're not on the same frequency, you might receive money for a while, but it will slip through your fingers like water. That's exactly what happened to me for years. I worked, earned little, lived in debt, and never understood why it seemed impossible to hold on to any money. Perhaps you've experienced this too. You receive your paycheck, and before the month even ends, it's already gone. Or you manage to save some money, but then an emergency quickly arises. A broken car, an unexpected bill, a recurring debt. And you ask yourself, why is it so hard to prosper when I'm working so hard? The answer lies in the vibration you emit. I remember a time when I was earning around $4,000 per year and owed nearly $6,000. Imagine the burden of constantly living with more debt than income. I'd look in the mirror and think, is my entire life going to be like this? Was I born just to survive, never to experience abundance? What I didn't realize was that I was vibrating exactly that: debt, fear, scarcity. My mind was conditioned to wake up thinking about what was lacking, go to sleep thinking about bills, and spend the entire day trying to put out fires. Have you ever noticed that when you worry too much about debt, even more unexpected bills seem to appear? That's no coincidence. That's precisely how vibration works. What you emit, you attract, and most people spend their entire lives vibrating worry, fear, and insecurity. It's no wonder their financial results reflect exactly that. A mentor showed me something that changed my life forever. He drew the letter R on a sheet of paper and said, "This R stands for result. The result never lies. It's simply a reflection of your current vibration." In that instant, I realized I didn't need to change the world, or immediately change jobs, or find a miraculous solution. What I needed to change was my own vibration. I was tuned into the wrong station. Think about it. When you turn on the radio, you only hear the station you're tuned into. If you want to listen to classical music, there's no point in turning the dial to a rock frequency. The same applies to money. If you want prosperity but are tuned into the frequency of scarcity, what do you expect to hear? What do you expect to receive? Science already proves this. Quantum physics shows that everything in the universe vibrates, including our thoughts and emotions. Neuroscience confirms that repeated thoughts create patterns in the brain that shape our behaviors. This means that when you daily repeat worries and thoughts of scarcity, you reinforce neural connections that keep you trapped in the same cycle. On the other hand, when you start thinking about abundance and solutions, you create new connections that lead you to opportunities that previously went unnoticed. I lived through this process myself. When I understood that I needed to change my vibration, I started asking myself, how can I earn more, instead of how will I pay this bill? This small shift in focus opened up a new world before me. Opportunities that had always been present began to jump out at me. People who could help me appeared on my path. Ideas that seemed impossible started to make sense, all because I adjusted my internal frequency. Now be honest with yourself. What has your vibration been like in the past few months? Do you think more about debts or prosperity? About problems or solutions? Do you wake up worried about what you lack or excited about what you can achieve? The answer to these questions can very well explain the results you are currently seeing. I know it might seem hard to think about abundance when bills are piled high and money never seems to be enough. But I was exactly there. And it was precisely at that point that the transformation began. Because when you're at rock bottom, there's only one way to go: up. And that path doesn't start in the external world, it begins within you, in the vibration you choose to emit every single day. Money is energy, and energy responds to frequency. If you change your vibration, inevitably your reality will change too. It happened for me, and it can happen for you. The habit that truly changed my life was so simple that, at first, I doubted it myself. It was just writing my goal on a small card and reading it every day, several times a day. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I thought so too. After all, how could a piece of paper change anything in my reality? But this simple act was the turning point that completely transformed my financial and personal life. I distinctly remember the first amount I wrote down, $125,000 per year. At that time, I was earning less than $2,000 per month and still owed more than I could afford to pay. To be honest, when I wrote it, I laughed myself. It seemed impossible, something entirely out of my reach, like dreaming of living on another planet. But still, I obeyed the instruction. Every day, I read that card. I read it in the morning, I read it at night, I read it during the day. And something very subtle began to happen. With each reading, I became a little more accustomed to the idea. Gradually, that number stopped being a joke and started to become a real possibility. Science explains why this works. Our brain has a structure called the reticular activating system. It acts like a filter, showing you only what's in focus in your mind. That's why when you think about buying a specific car, you suddenly start seeing it everywhere. It was always there, but you weren't tuned in to perceive it. The goal card does exactly this. It programs your mind to filter for opportunities, people, and ideas that are aligned with what you desire. Over time, I realized that I didn't attract what I wanted simply by wishing for it. I attracted it because I began to become the type of person capable of living that reality. The daily repetition of that reading reprogrammed my subconscious, altering my decisions and behaviors without me even noticing. I no longer thought about how to pay bills, but about how to create new income streams. I no longer looked at limitations, but at possibilities. It's important to understand you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And deep down, what you are depends on what you constantly think about. Many people desire prosperity, but spend their days feeding thoughts of fear, doubt, and scarcity. How can you expect reality to change if your internal frequency remains the same? This card habit forces your mind to align with the vibration of what you want. It doesn't let you forget your destiny, even when everything around you seems to contradict it. I've seen this habit change many lives. I remember a man who came to me, ashamed because at 35 years old, he was still earning minimum wage and believed his life was already set. I handed him a blank card and asked him to write down his true goal, something that genuinely moved him. He wrote that he wanted to earn $100,000 per month. For him, it was like climbing Everest, but he took the challenge seriously. He read the card every day, visualized that reality, and started acting like someone who truly believed he deserved it. In less than 2 years, he opened his own business and began to gross over $500,000 per month. This isn't an isolated case. Scientific studies show that when we repeat an idea with emotional intensity, we create new neural pathways. It's as if we're training our brain to believe in a new identity. And when the identity changes, behavior follows. The card isn't magic. The magic lies in the repetition that transforms your mind and consequently your life. Now imagine the impact of this on your own life. Instead of waking up and thinking about debts, you wake up and read aloud, "I am financially free. I receive $10,000 per month." Instead of falling asleep worried about bills, you drift off visualizing your dream home, described in vivid detail on your card. Gradually, this stops being just words and becomes a new mental program. The difference between those who achieve and those who don't lies in consistency. Many write down their goals, but then quickly stash them in the back of a drawer and forget about them. That doesn't work. It's like planting a seed and pulling it up every day to see if it's grown. It requires patience, discipline, and repetition. Because change starts from within, and only then does it manifest outwardly. I doubted it myself at first, but I persisted. And it was this persistence that opened doors I would never have noticed before. The right people appeared, new ideas emerged, courage blossomed. All because I kept my mind fixed on a single point. This simple habit of a card and a few minutes each day was worth more than years of undirected hard work. This is the power of written clarity. When you decide what you want, write it down with conviction and read it every day. You plant the seed of abundance in your mind. And sooner or later, the external world aligns itself with the image you hold internally. Many people believe they cannot prosper because they lack effort, discipline, or because they haven't yet found the right strategy. But the truth is, most of the time, the problem isn't in what we do, but rather in what we believe. I experienced this firsthand. From childhood, I heard phrases like, "Money is dirty," "Rich people are greedy," "You only achieve anything through immense sweat and sacrifice." These words went straight into my subconscious, and I didn't realize they were precisely what kept me trapped in a cycle of limitations. The subconscious is largely formed in the early years of life, even before we develop the critical capacity to question what we hear. Up to the age of 7, we absorb everything as an absolute truth. If you grew up hearing that you weren't born to be rich, that you couldn't ask much from life, or that happiness and abundance don't go hand in hand, it's highly probable that today you live by these beliefs without even realizing it. It's as if there's a program running in the background of your mind, dictating all your choices, emotions, and even the limits you impose on yourself. I knew a woman who received a large legal settlement, about $400,000. It was more money than she had ever seen in her entire life. However, 2 years later, she had nothing left but debts and frustrations. How is that possible? It was simple. The money changed, but her mindset didn't. She remained stuck in the same scarcity vibration, carrying the same patterns of fear, guilt, and limitation. This is the power of invisible beliefs. You can change cities, jobs, even receive an unexpected fortune. But if your mindset remains the same, sooner or later you'll return to the same point. And don't think this only happens to ordinary people. I myself experienced an internal conflict when I started earning a lot of money. Deep down, I felt out of place, as if I didn't deserve it. I thought it was luck, that it would soon end, because I had been taught to believe that wealth wasn't for everyone. And you know what happened? I started to sabotage myself. On a trip to London, I gambled away fortunes in casinos, almost as if I wanted to get rid of the money and return to my comfort zone. This wasn't an accident. It was my subconscious trying to pull me back to the scarcity pattern I'd known since childhood. This is the crucial point. Our beliefs form the foundation upon which we build our entire lives. They define how much we deem acceptable to earn, what we believe we deserve, and even how much happiness we allow into our daily lives. And that's why many people can't advance, even by reading books, taking courses, or trying new strategies. Because when pressure mounts, when challenges arise, the subconscious takes over and makes us revert to our usual behavior. Perhaps you've experienced this already. You start something new full of enthusiasm, but when the first obstacles appear, an inner voice whispers, "This isn't for you. Better give up now before it gets worse. There's no point in trying. It will never work out." That voice isn't you. It's the programming installed decades ago. It disguises itself as prudence or humility, but in reality, it's just fear masquerading as wisdom. The most dangerous thing is that many of these beliefs seem harmless. Phrases like, "It's better to have little and live peacefully," or "I don't need much to be happy," might even sound nice, but when used as justification, they function as an invisible prison. They prevent you from expanding, from exploring your potential, from living a life of abundance that deep down you feel you deserve. I learned that changing beliefs isn't a quick process, but it's absolutely possible. It's like replacing a soundtrack that plays non-stop in the background. At first you barely notice, but with repetition, discipline, and awareness, it's possible to install a new melody, a new programming that supports your goals instead of sabotaging them. This is the key to breaking the cycle that traps most people. Recognizing that the limitation isn't in the outside world, but in the silent beliefs that control your life from within. And the question you need to ask yourself now is, how many of your decisions today are in fact your own choices, and how many are merely echoes of old beliefs you inherited without realizing it? When I started to achieve more money than I had ever imagined, a part of me didn't believe it was real. I felt like an imposter, as if at some point someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "This isn't yours, give it back." This feeling accompanied me for a long time because my self-image was still that of an uneducated, indebted, lost and directionless young man. Even surrounded by opportunities, my mind insisted on pulling me back to the level I believed I deserved to be at. It was during this period that I made some of the biggest mistakes of my life. I would spend fortunes in casinos, as happened in London. I saw myself sitting at the roulette table, betting absurd amounts, not for fun, but out of an almost unconscious impulse to get rid of the money. It was as if, in some corner of my mind, I believed it wasn't for me, that everything would soon disappear. So in a way, I myself tried to speed up the process. This is the trap of self-image. It functions like an internal thermostat. If the temperature of your life rises beyond what you believe you deserve, your mind finds a way to cool everything back down. That's why so many people who win the lottery or receive large inheritances end up losing everything in a few years. It's not about bad luck, it's about identity. The mind doesn't accept keeping something that doesn't align with the image you have of yourself. If deep down you still see yourself as someone limited, who doesn't deserve abundance, who must live solely by effort and survival, the subconscious will find a way to bring your life back to that pattern, even if for a while you've risen beyond it. I know this idea might seem harsh, but it's liberating once you understand the mechanism, because if self-image can trap you, it can also set you free. The secret is to work from the inside out, building a new vision of who you are and what you deserve. It's not enough to change jobs, start a business, or receive a large sum of money. If you don't change how you see yourself, you'll continue to sabotage yourself without realizing it. How many times have you turned down an opportunity because you thought, "This is too good for me"? How many times have you felt uncomfortable receiving a compliment or a proposal that could change your life? This discomfort isn't humility. It's your self-image trying to keep you at the level you've always been at. I needed to understand that success wasn't just about earning more, but about becoming someone capable of sustaining that abundance. It was an internal struggle because it required abandoning old beliefs, breaking free from the feeling of unworthiness, and creating a new identity. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I almost gave up myself, but I realized that if I didn't elevate my self-image, any external achievement would be temporary. It's like building a skyscraper on fragile ground. You can erect the most impressive structure, but if the foundation isn't solid, sooner or later it will collapse. Self-image is that foundation. When you strengthen the image you have of yourself, adjusting to see yourself as someone worthy of abundance, capable of prospering and maintaining what you achieve, success becomes sustainable. I learned that it wasn't enough to earn money. I needed to become the kind of person who feels comfortable with wealth, who sees it as natural, not as something strange or temporary. And this process begins in the silence of the mind, when you decide to stop seeing yourself as someone small and start seeing yourself as the grand version of who you truly are. The question that remains is, what image do you carry of yourself today? Do you see yourself as someone who deserves abundance and prosperity, or as someone destined to eternally fight against scarcity? Your life will never surpass the image you have of yourself. That's why changing self-image isn't optional. It's essential. When I think of examples of true transformation, the story of people who, in the face of the most adverse circumstances, managed to shape their reality from an internal decision, always comes to mind. Oprah Winfrey is one of those people. She was born into extreme poverty, faced abuse, discrimination, and a childhood that could easily have determined her future of pain and failure. But, at a certain point, she decided that those experiences would not define who she was. She began to cultivate within herself a mindset of abundance, overcoming and impact. Today, she has not only built a billion-dollar fortune, but also one of the most influential communication platforms on the planet. What changed wasn't just her external conditions, but primarily how she saw herself internally. This is the power of the mind when aligned with a new vision. And perhaps you've already noticed this in small daily situations. Have you ever thought about buying a specific car and suddenly started seeing it everywhere? It's not that the world suddenly became full of that car model. It was always there, but now your mind was tuned to see it. The same happens with opportunities for success. They are around you all the time, but you only perceive them when your attention, your frequency, and your mindset are aligned with what you desire. And that's where many people make a mistake. They believe they need to first see the change on the outside to then believe. But the order is exactly the opposite. It all starts with belief. You align your inner self, you cultivate that vision, and only then does your external reality begin to shift and conform to this new frequency. That was Oprah's experience. It was mine too. And it can be yours or anyone else's if they choose. I've witnessed this transformation firsthand in everyday individuals, those without fame, inherited wealth, or powerful connections. These were people who, at their core, felt destined for a life of scarcity. Yet, by simply shifting their mindset, they started to see opportunities emerge. The right people enter their lives and fresh ideas spring forth, seemingly out of nowhere. It wasn't the external world that changed. It was how they began to perceive themselves and tap into the abundance that was already there, waiting for them. There's a subtle but significant line dividing those who experience scarcity from those who live in abundance, and that line is your dominant thought pattern. Oprah is a powerful example, but you don't need a global platform or billions of dollars in your bank account to undergo this profound shift. All it takes is choosing to view yourself and your life through a new lens, believing that you are worthy, that you are capable. And once that conviction becomes woven into the fabric of your identity, the world around you will inevitably begin to respond. This is the remarkable power of the human mind. It can transmute limitations into stepping stones and turn old wounds into powerful fuel for growth. Your trajectory isn't determined by what you've experienced, but by how you choose to interpret those experiences and what new beliefs you decide to hold moving forward. Once you grasp this, no barrier can truly hold you captive. You become like someone who's discovered the key to a door that was always locked from within. And when that door swings open, life as you know it is transformed forever. When you embrace this straightforward commitment, something profound begins to shift. Initially, it might feel as though nothing is happening. You read the card, reiterate the words, visualize your future, and your day-to-day life appears unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, a new root quietly takes hold. It's akin to planting a seed in the soil. For days, perhaps for weeks, you might observe nothing outwardly, but deep underground, in the unseen, life is already germinating, expanding, and preparing to surface. The same process unfolds within your mind. At first glance, the card may seem like mere paper, but in truth it acts as a powerful anchor for forging a new identity. I'm aware that many will harbor doubts. Perhaps even you are questioning, how can such a simple habit truly transform everything? I had those very same thoughts. I lacked self-belief when I first penned my initial goal. Yet, I committed to the practice and persevered. It was through this consistent repetition that I discovered the strength to dismantle old patterns. The power doesn't reside in the mere words written down. The true power lies in the sustained act of seeing it, pondering it, and experiencing it as genuinely real until your mind starts to operate in alignment with this newfound pattern. This is the moment your life truly begins to align. You'll find yourself no longer comfortable lamenting debts or echoing phrases of scarcity. You'll even feel a pang of discomfort when someone declares money doesn't grow on trees, because you now understand that abundance is infinite, and the only true limitation is your mental programming. Subtle shifts in behavior will materialize effortlessly. You'll make bolder decisions, embrace opportunities you once dismissed, and readily say yes to what resonates with your evolving self. Now, I invite you to reflect deeply. How many times have you allowed an opportunity to pass you by, simply out of fear of not being prepared? How often have you uttered no to something with the potential to transform your life, solely because your mind insisted you weren't deserving? Understand this, it wasn't a matter of bad luck. It was merely your self-image's internal thermostat calibrating your life to remain within familiar patterns. This card challenge offers the most direct route to recalibrating that very thermostat. I've witnessed this phenomenon repeatedly with individuals who sought my guidance. One such person, an unassuming man who felt entirely discredited, inscribed an seemingly outlandish goal on his card: to earn $100,000 per month. He initially found it amusing, yet he persisted. 2 years later, He not only achieved that goal but surpassed it by several multiples. This wasn't due to any magical property of the paper itself, but because the consistent daily practice of looking at his goal profoundly altered his self-perception and, in turn, the decisions he made. This is precisely why I assert with such profound conviction: if you commit yourself, if you uphold this practice for 30 days without a single lapse, you will emerge a different person at the end. While you might not yet witness the complete manifestation of your desired outcome, you will undeniably have altered your self-perception, and that, truly, is the fundamental seed of all enduring transformation. And if you find yourself resonating with this content, if something within you is stirring, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel now and click the like button. This is far more than a simple gesture of support. It's a declaration to yourself that you are deeply committed to your own evolution. Because truly, this is merely the commencement. With every step forward, every new practice you embrace, you will ascend yet another rung on this journey, and soon you will recognize that you have become a version of yourself that once seemed utterly unattainable. Now take a moment to consider someone in your life who might need to hear these words just as much as you do. Please share this video with them, because even a small gesture can ignite the spark of profound change in their life. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we will continue to progress together on this shared journey of growth and abundance.